My next dish, I actually placed in the oven last night. Let me tell you something. It smells good up in here. I'm staying with the barbecue theme, and we're doing Carolina-style pulled pork. So, anytime you're doing pulled pork, I think the best meat that you can use is a pork shoulder or a Boston butt. I mean, you can use a picnic ham if you want, but I think this is better. This has two sides to it. It has a side without fat and a side with fat. And what I've done here is I've removed pretty much a lot of that fat that comes off of here. Because what will happen is when you put all these spices on there, which I'm going to rub down in just a second, it will slide off because the fat is just going to melt off anyway. So, let's go ahead and take it off. So I've done that. Now, to make my dry rub, so I got some salt, pepper, I've got brown sugar, paprika, a little ancho, chipotle, chili powder, whatever kind you like. Throw that in there. I've got a little ginger, a little garlic, onion, and this is mustard. Put that in there, and then cumin. So what I got to do here is just going to mix this up, and then we can go ahead and start to rub this down. You got to watch it sometimes with your sugar, your brown sugar. Sometimes it clumps up on you. You got to keep it really airtight. So there we go. Okay, so this is how I'm going to do this. I'm going to take a little bit of oil. I'm just going to put it in my hand just like this, and I'm just going to rub this on top. Now you're saying, Chef, you're putting more fat on that thing. I told you just take it off. Well, what this is going to do, it's just going to be a glue, and it's kind of going to hold our rub on there. And this is going to be really nice. It'll help you create a really nice bark on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this rub, and I'm just going to kind of put it liberally all over it. Don't think you just sprinkle it on there. You need to put it on there and rub it. And I'll show you once we pull this thing out of the oven, you see what it looks like. It makes a huge difference. What I was talking about with bark is that's what you get when those spices cook down, and sometimes when you can use smoke, and the smoke will actually give it that good bark flavor too. So there it is, and we're going to get this in the oven. Now, what I like to do, here's how I like to cook mine. You can put it in a container just like this, put a little bit of water, bourbon, whatever you like in there, and wrap it up and cook it like that if you want to. But I like to cook mine like a dry, almost like a smoker. Now, I'm going to tell you, the best way to cook a big old Boston butt like this is to smoke it. But since we don't have those capabilities, and a lot of you don't, I'm going to take it like this, put it on a grate or a rack or one of your top oven racks, and now I've got some water in the bottom of the oven. And I'm just going to set this right on top of the water. And what that's going to do, it's not going to steam it too much to where the bark won't set up, but it's just enough to keep it moist and nice. So we're going to put this in the oven. This thing needs to cook for about 6 to 8 hours, and about anywhere from 225 to 240. And it needs to go, like I said, 6 to 8 hours. It's a long time. When it reaches 190, it's done. So I'm going to put this in the oven. Oh my gosh, look at this stuff. Look at the bark that really got on here like we were talking about with that spice. It's just thick on there. You can see it's kind of down. Look at that. That is so good. This is going to make such a great pulled pork. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of just get this out of here. I'm going to get it in the bowl because I got to pull this stuff. Here we go. We'll stick it in here, and I'm going to set this aside for later, and we'll come right back to it after we make our sauce. Okay. Now our sauce. So I'm going to turn on my pot here. I'm going to start with this is a North Carolina style barbecue. It's a vinegar base. So I'm going to start with that. A little brown sugar. Little white sugar. I've got some tomato paste, just a little. Really key ingredient here, whole grain mustard. And then there's a couple more things. We've got a little bit of Worcestershire sauce, which is right here. And for it to be called North Carolina style barbecue, you've got to use Texas Pete in it. If you use anything else, it's not North Carolina, because they wouldn't have it. Because this stuff's this is made in North Carolina, so this is their hot sauce. There you go, Texas Pete. And then I've got some garlic, a little bit of cayenne, or you can put chili flakes in it, which I like too. And then just a little bit of salt and pepper, because you don't really need a lot here. I'm just going to put a little bit, and a little bit of pepper. And then all I'm going to do here is just kind of stir this thing up and kind of let it get married. And when you do that, all of these spices are going to come together really nice, and you're going to have a great sauce. Now, let me tell you something about a barbecue sauce. I used to be under the impression that you could just make the best barbecue sauce on the stove. You could put together these ingredients. It's perfectly sweet, perfectly tart, perfect everything. But in reality, your sauce needs to bite you when you taste it. If you don't put your finger in here or get a spoon and put it in your mouth and go, whoa, then it's not going to work inside your meat. Because what's going to happen is all that stuff, it's going to take away that kick that's in there a little bit. So it's got to be a very, very strong sauce to start with. So we're going to let that go for just a few minutes while I pull this big boy. Now, how do you know when this pork's done? Well, I don't even use a thermometer anymore. I use this, which is this little bone right here. And if it comes out and it doesn't have a whole lot of meat on it, it's perfect. Now, you don't want it to be so clean that you've overcooked the meat. That's a real key thing that a lot of people do when they cook pulled pork. They just think that they're just going to cook it and cook it and cook it. But essentially, it's about 6 to 8 hours for one of these butts. So I'm just going to pull this kind of apart with my hands. Whew, a little warm too. I'm going to just pull half of this because we don't need it all right now. And I'll move the rest of this out of the way. So you can do it with your hands, or you can use two forks, whatever you see fit to do. And I don't like to break mine up too much. That's my personal opinion on it. I think you lose some of the meat flavor when it's all like finely chopped up. I just don't like it like that. So got this pulled just like that. Now, if you get little pieces of fat in there or anything that didn't break down from the cooking process, you can just pull that right out. So I got a little piece there, okay? So we're going to leave it down there just like that, and I'm going to set this aside. Now, let's talk about bread for your sandwich for just a quick second. A lot of people will use hamburger buns or whatever. I like something that's going to hold up really good to what I'm trying to do, and I like this Etchipanis. This is a country white loaf. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to cut me a couple pieces off of here and make it on that. And old school people will tell you that just put it on white bread. You don't need to have it on a hamburger bun or this big old crusty roll or whatever. But this is perfect. This is enough to hold it up, and this is Etchipanis bread. Very good stuff. So what I'm going to do, I'll set the bread right there in front, and I'll get our sauce, and we're going to add it to it. So I'm going to pour some right in there just like that. It should actually still be a liquid. It should not be this real thick sauce or anything. And it just coats that meat just like that. Look at that. That smells so good. And then we'll take our bread, put some of this, just pile it up. I mean, you can just pile this thing high as you can get it. There you go. I like that piece. A little bit of the bark in there makes it good. And then we'll set it right here on this cutting board. Have another piece of bread with this leaning up there, and I got some of my confetti slaw that we made in the last episode. Put that with that, perfect. When we come back, the strawberries are in peak season. But first, it's time to announce our winner of the Cooking with Kroger sweepstakes.